was able to find some logs that a neighbor had from an old log cabin of the same style and era, and I may be able to use some of these, but as you can see, they're sitting out here unprotected, and there's a lot of rot, some soft spots, and these things are wet, and there's a lot of softness in this area and this area. You see on the edge, so I'm not sure how much of these I'm going to be able to use either. It's a shame because these are great long 20-foot logs, but a couple of them are notched already, and again the rest of them have got some rot because they've been out here exposed to the rain, and that's already got fungus on it. So we'll see how this is going to work out, but it's not looking too promising.
Déjame tú para ayudarte. Agua con los patos.
Because so many of the logs were rotten and are going to need to be replaced, I needed to find some replacement logs. And as you could see earlier, finding original logs in good condition, good enough condition and long enough and without any rot was almost impossible, actually impossible for me. So I had to find a source of some new logs. And what I found was a local sawmill operator out of Eufaula, Pomeroy Lumber, and they source their own timber and can custom mill it or saw it into whatever size you need, and they've been fantastic, great to work with. And they agreed to give me basically some whole logs, 18-foot logs, cut in half, as you can see here. And it's a beautiful, we did a beautiful job just straight down the beam, and we'll use these for some replacements on the longer sections. And it's interesting too, this is just to see how pine works. I mean, already you've got some pine beetle holes where they're digging into the bark, which is one of the reasons you have to take the bark off. And if you look at this one, I shaved some of the bark off, and you can see the beetle had carved its way inside the bark and was already kind of nesting inside the outer layer of the log, the sapwood. So we'll have to remove this bark, and then I'm going to end up treating these and all the rest of the logs with a wood preservative, which I'll talk about later. But these are great logs. They're fresh, brand new. They still have sap, so they're heavier than the old logs that have dried out. So they are really, really heavy. So we had some help in offloading these. I've got 8 of these now. And then while they were delivering it, I went ahead and ordered from them some rough sawn timber, some 1x8s here, which you can see a stack of these, and we're going to air dry these off to the side until we're ready to use those for flooring and the roofing. And then over here we've got some 2x6s, true 2x6s, and man, he did a great job cutting this. I mean, it's just beautiful lumber. So I'll be covering all this up until we need it, but these will be the new roof joists that we'll use, and then perhaps some framing for the windows. So we'll have all this set up and drying out while I'm working on the rest of the cabin. Hopefully we can keep all that dry. But man, I wish you could be here to smell it. It's just all this beautiful fresh cut pine. Man, it smells like a Christmas tree store. It's just beautiful. I went ahead and purchased some additional old logs from this gentleman that had a log cabin himself, and these are the remaining boards and logs from that cabin. So at least I've got a backup of sorts. They're not, again, I told you earlier, they're not in great shape. A lot of them have some rot, but I think for some of the shorter areas, 6 or 8 feet or less, we can reuse some of them. And there's some neat old sill beams in here as well. Again, they're rotted, but I think we can reuse parts of these. So at least I've got some backup materials now in case we've got to do a lot more replacements. Because there's so much rot and so many insects and termite damage in so many of these logs, especially the ones I'm going to try and store for a while, I want to prevent that from happening in the actual cabin that I'm building, as well as the logs that I'm trying to save until I can use them. And so I looked for some fairly safe or natural pesticides or insecticide fungicides, and came up with something called, I guess it's a borate, a sodium borate, and it's really just a salt, like a mineral salt that you can mix with just warm water. I've seen some places try to mix it with like antifreeze, ethylene glycol, which supposedly helps the absorption rate into wood, but I don't want to get into that. It doesn't sound too safe. But supposedly you can spray this borate on the infected areas, like right here, and it absorbs into the wood and doesn't leave too much of a residue or any problems. And what happens is any of the bugs that try to eat it, it's almost like salt when you're salting or preserving meat, like beef jerky or ham. The salt preserves the fiber and the cellulose. So again, we've already got some some little termite trails in here. So we're gonna try this stuff and see how that works. Hopefully that'll help delay continued rot and decay of the logs.